Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets, with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Must Love Books. Hello, and welcome back to Must Love Books podcast. Today, I am here with Carlyn Greenwald, who writes romantic and thrilling page-turners for teens and adults. Today, we are here celebrating Carlyn's newest release, Murderland, a young adult thriller that I am so excited about. Hello, Carlyn. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
I'm so happy to have you here. Murderland looks incredible. The cover immediately drew my attention and I'm like, this is right up my alley. I'm so in.
So glad. The cover went through quite a process, but I'm so happy with what we ended up landing with.
It is awesome, very eye-catching and just really throws you right into the story. And that's something I love to see. Why don't you tell our listeners what Murderland is all about?
Yeah, so Murderland is a YA thriller. It follows a 17-year-old ride operator who, on the first night of her promotion, working on this new ride in this new land in kind of a Southern California theme park modeled off of Disneyland and a couple other parks in Southern California. And basically, she allows one of her coworkers to ride on the ride when she's not supposed to be operating it yet, and he dies. And so then the book is she and her friends, who are various employees or ex-employees of the park, are trying to clear her name and find out what really happened to this coworker of theirs. And unbeknownst to them, not really a spoiler, there is someone actually killing people. So it's a bit of, thriller and murder mystery in one.
Let's talk about your writing inspirations.
Yeah, so for this book, I have just always had an interest in theme parks. I'm from Southern California, so I feel like it's kind of a tradition to sort of go to all the parks at some point, maybe once a year. So I went to Disney a lot as a kid, and then in college I took classes on iconography, and there was a lot focused on the history and sort of more academic looks at theme parks and sort of what that means in a broader scope of culture. I always found interesting. And then I feel like within the last 15 years, there started being YouTube channels that would do these documentaries about various aspects of these parks. So I always found that interesting. And then what ended up happening, so I'd always had that in the back of my mind, is it's a really interesting setting. And then I had a friend who was like, I'm offloading random one-liner pitches. Do you want this one that would be a murder mystery set at preview land for a theme park? And at the time, Star Wars Land had just opened in Disneyland. So I could remember the feeling of you see the news and there's these celebrities and all these influencers who are just sort of milling around this park in this half closed state that I thought was really interesting. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take this one true crime case I know from watching all this YouTube, combine it with this one-line pitch my friend gave me, and then combine it with sort of all my knowledge of theme parks. And yeah, I took a lot. I think it took a year on and off to write. I wrote it during the pandemic, and here it is.
Everyone wrote so many amazing novels over the pandemic, so I'm glad to add this one to my pandemic art list. Yeah. So before you were writing novels, your background was in screenwriting. How does screenwriting impact your process of writing a novel?
So one thing they really teach you from the ground up how to write a screenplay. I went to USC and was in film school for part of my education. There was a couple other things I did too, but so they teach you. I use really intense screenplay structure in my novels. I am not a pantser at all, and I feel I really learned a solid outlining method and how to structure stories in a really way where it then later requires not as much revision. I have this really kind of wild process that I do that is like so many steps before I actually start writing the novel that's based off of like Campbell's like hero's journey kind of stuff. Like you would read these books in film school. And then otherwise, I think I always think very cinematically. And I think you can kind of tell in Murderland, like I don't know if all writers do this, but I'm one of those people where like write by visualizing a movie or TV show. So like everything sort of goes through that lens of how would this look visually, the most distinct way to get in and out of scenes in order to up the dramatic tension, up the suspense, stuff like that. I think it's really woven itself into the framework of how I write sort of all stories.
I really love that as someone who, from a reading perspective, but also as a fellow writer, I am someone who definitely like visualizes what I'm reading or writing as a movie scene, what it would look like. And I personally think that this method really helps you dive deeper into the world that you are creating or the world that you're reading of from a reading perspective. And I think that this is such an excellent way to approach writing, whether you have a screenwriting background or
Mm-hmm.
not. Just thinking of it like, how would this look if I was actually in it? I think it just really allows you to be more detailed and more in the world.
Yeah, and what I actually found is that it helped with suspense writing a lot because it was like I would literally be writing the scene as if I was looking at shots. So it'd be like, you would be thinking of if it was slow-mo, if it was like really specific shots. And I feel like that allowed me to really learn how to slow down a scene and really pull out tension. That, like, yeah, I feel like there's nothing quite like watching movies that utilize sort of those genres in order to learn how to write it in books.
So while you are seeing it as a scene, especially in regards to like slow-mo and things, do you also like play a soundtrack?
Hmm. That I honestly don't. That's one thing that I feel like I'm like, if anything ever got adapted, I'd be like, you know what, you guys do it. Maybe there's like occasionally I will have specific songs actually be in the content itself as like part of the moment. But otherwise it's very rare for me to think of the music. But that's I'm gonna think about that now while writing my next thing. Be like, all right, what would go here?
Yes, because I so want to know. I always have playlists for anything, whether it is like just fit the vibes or a song where the lyrics really relate to the story. So I love the idea of having a soundtrack for a book.
Yeah, I mean, this is funny because I make playlists. Truthfully, I could write any kind of book to any kind of music. Like I can just take my whole library, put it on shuffle, and I could write anything to it. But I do make the playlist now. I think it's fun. It's like a fun way to like get in the headspace. But the problem with me is I basically only listen to like I don't know, 2000s pop punk and various like rock genres. And I feel like that works for Murderland because it's such like a little punky book anyway. But like other books, like that didn't work for like romances. So when I think they never asked me to make a playlist, but I was like, I can't make a playlist for this because I don't like, I often don't listen to, now I listen to more like gay pop a little bit more. So like now I could probably put together a playlist for my books, but I was like, I don't know, guys. I don't know.
Whenever I have a story idea, honestly, creating a playlist is one of the first things I do. Not only does it help me visualize scenes, but it just like puts me in the mindset and, really helps
Mm,
me focus on the words if I just have that music playing. Because I always have music playing in the background for
yes.
anything anyway, whether I'm at work or if I'm, going for a walk. Like there's always some kind of music playing. So creating a specialized playlist when writing just came like so naturally to me.
Yeah. I'm trying to do it more. I did it more. So obviously I write screenplays too, and I do more period pieces. So in those, that's where I got really used to it. Because you're like, okay, I'm writing something set in the 70s. Like I need a playlist of only 70s music.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm getting there. I'm getting to like making a playlist with every single book, and hopefully they'll keep getting better and not just be generic things I like.
I like seeing, and this is something that I've only seen every now and then, but I think it's coming up more and more often, And that'll be a playlist for the novel included either in the novel itself or on the author's website. And I am just such a
Oh.
sucker for that. Like, tell me what to listen to while I'm reading
Hmm.
this novel. And even I was playing a murder mystery game with one of my book club
Yeah.
members, and this murder mystery game included a playlist of like this couple's their like vacation beach songs, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm so in for it.
Nice. That is fun. That and like in books, that's also I think I have too. I've seen it in one romance book, but that's very
Yeah, I
fun.
think it's romance that you see it happen the most often.
Other genres, let's go.
Yeah, let's step it up. Let's get these playlists going. So, how do you specifically approach your writing process?
So, are we starting from like the ground up or when it's like a typical writing day?
You know what? Tell me, let's go from the ground up, but also I want to hear about what a typical writing day looks like for you.
This whole process, again, this is something I kind of developed out of screenplay school. But basically, I will start with a log line, like a one sentence pitch of the book. And then I will go from there and write blurb on the back of a book, like a book jacket copy. Then once I have that, I will take Hero's Journey, which I think is like roughly, let's just say 9 to 12 story beats, fill those in, and then I'll like use random math. I'll be like, I think I want this book to be about 80,000 words. And then I kind of know by now, like, okay, I underwrite, so I'm gonna aim for, whatever amount of words, and then I know I'll add in revision. And then I'll literally like type out like chapters 1 through 30, let's just say, and then I will put my 9 beats somewhere roughly in those little sections, and then just fill in the beats from there until I have a chapter by chapter outline. From there, I'll usually do like character work and start writing. Like, if I can write about a chapter, get the voice, like, okay, this is going somewhere, we're gonna go. So that's how I do a lot of work beforehand. I would say every chapter. So then when I sit down to write, I will have like a paragraph of what's going to happen in that chapter. So I don't have to think as hard because I have a day job. So I basically work my 9 to 5. And if I am on deadline, I will try to walk the dog, have dinner, and then sit down and write for a few hours. I try not to be hard on myself because I feel like with the creative process, especially when you have such limited windows, it can get really stressful very quickly. So I'll try to write during the week in those sort of like couple hours I get at night. And then if it doesn't work or just in general, I will then on the weekends sit down, put on the playlist of either generic music or a playlist related to the book and just sit down until I have a chapter or 2 chapters done. And then repeat that process until the book is done. Luckily, I haven't had any deadlines with my 9 to 5 that would have involved like doing a different process. I have like with Time Out, that one was, which is an IP book I did with Sean Hayes. I did that before I had a full-time job, and I think that one was due in like a month. So that in that case, I was lucky enough that I could like do that sitting down and getting a chapter out every single day and like could do it for a full sort of full-time writer schedule. But I don't have that anymore. So I hope that sort of deadline doesn't pop up again. But so far, I haven't had to do that for any other contracts I've had since.
So, you started writing when you were 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
How has your publishing journey evolved since then?
Oh God, because it like had actual like beats to this story when I was young too. So basically, so when I was 13, I was like really into Christopher Nolan's like Batman trilogy, specifically The Dark Knight. Like I was like one of those people related to Heath Ledger's Joker when I was like way too young. And so I started writing thrillers and I wrote this book. I think it was so imagine it's like 2008, 2009. I don't know if you were online like in those spaces where there was like fiction press and I don't it wasn't even Wattpad. It might have been that and something else, but it was like there were weird premises. So I had like a book that was like a teen serial killer and a teen like cadet cop. And I don't know if you could really be either of those things when you're 18, but like they had like a, you know, Kill Bill type thing. Like they together for like a series of crimes and they had a romance. again, ridiculous things that people used to write in like 2009, and I kind of wish they still did. Bring back weird YA. Let
Yes.
me revamp that premise. But so I wrote that, and then I had a family friend who was a published author, and she recommended me. She convinced my parents to pay for freelance editing, thinking I could like get an agent for this book because the person I like hired a freelance editor who was also a literary agent. So I like my parents paid for this for like a birthday, and then I did all the work, and then the agent didn't want to represent me. Like I was like 13.
Oh no.
And so it was kind of like, why did I start out like that? I didn't need to do that young. But so I kind of like, I kept writing new books. Like, to be fair, I probably, when I was younger, I think I was writing like 3 or 4 books a year because I guess I would just like come home from school and just write. I wasn't tired yet. And so I just kept writing books, and I would kind of query, like maybe send out like 10 queries and then stop because I would be focused on the next book I wrote. And I did that
Already jumping.
for a lot. Yeah, like I wasn't taking it that seriously because obviously I was like a teenager slash child, and it wasn't necessary yet to really dive in. Um, but yeah, and then like I think what happened was around like college, Pitch Wars was a thing, and so I got into Pitch Wars with a YA thriller, and that's when I started taking it seriously. And I queried, didn't Pitch Wars did not get me an agent. I actually ended up writing a new book, and then I got the agent like 2 years later, and then we couldn't didn't sell that book. That book didn't sell. Then my agent left agenting, and I got a new agent at that agency in 2019. We tried to sell another book in 2020. That didn't sell. That was also a YA thriller. And then I got the IP job in 2020, in late 2020. Like it was probably the last day of like the fiscal year was when I got the Sean Hayes project. And then in 2021, we sold the romance. And it's kind of, did the romance, and then we sold Murderland in 2023. So like it was like 15 years between when I started writing YA thrillers and then we finally sold one. So persistence is key, I guess.
Absolutely. And honestly, I so love that your parents, for your birthday gift, got you an edit of your work in progress. Like that's incredible. I would like someone to do that
They
for
were
my
they are
birthday. Like,
surprisingly yeah. No, they were like incredibly supportive, even though like they did not know we were what we were in for. But no, they've always been didn't I don't know if they necessarily read the books, and to be fair with the romances, I'm like, please don't. Like you don't need
right.
to read them. But no, they're incredibly supportive, and I think that they're can be more interested in the thrillers than the romances. So I'll finally write something that they'll get to see after all these years.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
So, have you ever considered revisiting some of those earlier novels and revamping them to publish not as a teenager?
So here's the problem. I haven't even like to trying to sell the books that I probably wrote within the last like 5-10 years that like were actually good. I keep coming up with new ideas is the problem. Like the whole thing I was doing when I was young is still kind of a problem. I just don't write as many, but like when it comes time for option, I will be like, hey, like I have this new idea versus ever pulling back any of my old ones. I'm gonna try. I'm like it's kind of a creative goal to try to actually pitch one of the ones that I have previously like written within the last 10 years. And if we can get one of those going, maybe then I can go back and revisit. Because I think, to be fair, I haven't looked at a lot of these ideas in a long time. And actually, Murderland kind of, I had written a theme park thriller when I was like 14. It was a ridiculous premise. I don't even remember. I think it was like a theme park book, but then it also became about like eco terrorists trying to save wolves. Don't know what was up with that
Love
one.
it.
But so to be fair, I think that that book at least got like the core of it was taken out and put into Murderland. But any of the other ones, I mean, look, one day I guess I could just show my agent all the old ideas, be like, is there anything here? And she can tell me. If YA gets into a very weird space again, like I'm thinking of like Beauty Queens or like I Hunt Killers, or like there were some like really out there premises, and if those come back, then we can look at my old stuff when my brain was just fully juicy and full of weird little ideas.
Yeah, I really miss the old internet spaces that we co-opted as young creative writers. Just some of the crazy out of pocket ideas that teenagers were writing, a good 15 years ago. Like, what were we doing?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, Wattpad kind of has the same energy. I haven't actually read a Wattpad book, but I assume that if anything in those, I just remember all the One Direction, like I got,
Yes.
kidnapped and sold to One Direction. We didn't quite, I feel like I don't know. I think that the intersection of fan fiction and all those weird ideas people used to write when they were young and just would throw online kind of came together for those.
Why were so many people being sold to One Direction?
I don't know. I mean, like, okay, like fine, sure, go do that. I think it's just the market would need to turn back around and be like, we really like we want to do something unique again. Because I think, just the natural sort of ebbs and flows of capitalism is it's a lot of trying to buy similar things and, there's not as much investment, I think, in just sort of the weird, wacky ideas. Occasionally one will come through, but it's not as common anymore.
I'm here for all the weird and wacky, and I agree. I would definitely love to see some more of that re-enter the YA sphere. You've touched on this a little bit in your writing inspirations and process, but what specifically has screenwriting taught you about novel writing?
It teaches you how to write dialogue. Like that's definitely a big thing. And I'm still kind of learning how to write dialogue for screenplays because so it gets really technical in terms of like they'll tell you, generally try to not have it be more than 5 lines and like read it out loud and see if like you trip over your words. I don't do that for novels. To be clear, I don't have the patience for it, but I think it just makes you more aware of making sure that you start to get a more of an instinct for what natural dialogue sounds like. And then I think once you know what natural dialogue sounds like, then you can kind of start incorporating like voice in there in a more natural way as opposed to like I would hope that at this point my dialogue doesn't come across as stilted anymore just because I've really been able to hone that craft. And then I think the funny thing is I'm thinking of what novel writing taught me about screenwriting, which is like but kind of goes back around of in screenwriting you are only allowed a very small amount of time to give description, so I got better at giving like 2 or 3 lines of really succinct description, and then I feel like it allows me to go back into novel writing and like I'm kind of an underwriter, so I'm still learning how to sort of delve into deeper into description. Like that was something I really worked hard on in Murderland was trying to evoke atmosphere because I'm so used to like not giving anything. So it was like trying to figure out how to evoke the atmosphere without it bogging down the pacing. Did I succeed? I don't know. Like I secretly always aspire to be one of those writers who has like not the purple like what people might call purple prose, but like what I think of as like beautiful like lyrical writing or like atmospheric writing. And I'm like, no, I come from screenwriting. I don't know. I'm just gonna give you like a bunch of action and dialogue, and there's probably someone on in the reading sphere who's like, I only read dialogue, and I'm like, all right, cool, my book's for you because I only like writing dialogue and have to work on everything else.
How do you approach writing thriller versus writing romance? And what differences in those processes are there for you?
So I guess in the plotting stage, romance is a lot harder. There are beat sheets for it, but I feel like I'm so used to external conflict where the stakes are life or death. It's more instinctive of what happens in terms of like basic plot beats. It's someone solving a mystery, it's someone fighting for their life, whatever it is. So with romance, I have to think about it a lot harder. It's so much more about like, it's kind of trying to accept that sometimes a beat will be something like, a meet cute is kind of the equivalent of an inciting incident. When the couple starts fake dating or whatever it is, that's kind of like the act one break, where in a thriller, it might be, a body has dropped or someone decides to investigate something. But it's very much on a say spiritual level in terms of just like the whole vibe of the whole project is different. Like I try to always include anecdotes and stuff like that into the prose, and it's like you have to be aware that in a romance, like you can get sad, you can get a little sort of darker, but that's not going to be the aim, especially with a rom-com. And it's like, how do you present sort of these moments with it fitting within the tone of what a reader will expect, and sort of not having it go like too dark to where it sort of exits out takes a reader out of the experience. And then so, it'll be like anecdotes might be chosen that are a little bit lighter to illustrate the same feeling. You might pick a specific anecdote in a thriller or in a romance, and you will pick it based on tone because of wanting to maintain a certain reading experience. So it was learning that, because I had actually come from a thriller background before I wrote the romance. And I cannot tell you how many people are like, why is this book so sad? And I'm like, I'm not trying to make it sad. Like, it's just happening because I think I had that instinct of like, I can go as dark as I want with emotion because it's real. But sometimes like you have to just know within the realm of realism, like what is going to serve the book better based on the different audiences. Honestly, there's a lot of like applicable skills to both of them because I do like having banter in my thrillers. So that just kind of naturally comes, like you develop that skill in romance and I bring it over to thriller. I think I bring the like trying to end chapters on a page turn I brought into romance. Like I remember when my editor bought Sizzle Reel, like she said, like this is extremely like it's a page turner, hence the bio. And I was like, oh, I'd never thought about, like I wasn't trying to do that, but because my instincts lie in that space, I think I sort of naturally do that with all the books, regardless of what genre they are. So thank you to thrillers for that.
I love that. And I love how, when you're reading something from a multi-genre author, you can really tell that they are able to, pick and choose certain aspects of writing those different genres and blend them in such a seamless way that really just embellishes the story and adds so much to it. I love reading romance that is written by horror authors and thriller authors because it just really kind of takes it to the next level and kind of takes the scenery and the
Mm-hmm.
atmosphere and the drama to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I really noticed that was the first time I read Courtney Summers' Sadie. Like I had thought of her as a contemporary author, but so reading Sadie, you're like the characters are so amazing in this. And I feel like I almost think every author should have to write contemporary at some point and like really have to do a character piece because it makes it so you bring that, like that is such a foundational part of what should be in every genre. Sometimes, it just gets deprioritized among like plot and other genre conventions, but it really makes a book like so much better when someone has a grasp on just like I could make the story compelling. It was just these characters like walking around their town, but you happen to get to have murder or dragons or whatever else.
I love that. I think that's such an incredible approach to writing, and clearly it's successful.
See.
Well, I think it works for you. Let's talk about messy female characters.
All right, let's go.
Let's start off with some of your favorite messy female characters.
So I guess we can start with Courtney Summers. I feel like she's like the queen of writing really messy, sort of wonderful female characters. Kelsey Rodkey writes some of my favorite contemporary messy characters. Again, especially in YA, it's honestly funny to me that there's even an idea that you wouldn't have a messy character in that age range. Like, who is not messy at that age? Like, I think it should be a genre convention. Jennifer Dugan writes really great messy female characters too. Like I remember reading Hot Dog Girl and like being so frustrated, and I think that's one of the most wonderful experiences to have in a book To me, it indicates that you're writing like a realistic character. Here's the thing, I don't like being bored, so I would rather be extremely frustrated with a character written by someone who knows what they're doing than write someone who's perfect. Like, I cannot tell you how much I would rather pick up the other book that has the messy character. I think there's a lot of really great like contemporary authors and contemporaries who are doing romance thriller in the YA space that do a great job with that.
I'd have to say that probably one of the most popular messy female character would have to be Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games.
Mm-hmm.
She's cynical and suspicious and standoffish, and it really just works for her character so much. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that a lot of readers are able to relate to within her. Another one is, oh, I have just finished reading the second book in the Hurricane Wars trilogy, A Monsoon Rising,
Mm-hmm.
and Taliesin, the main heroine, is such a messy character. She
Mm-hmm.
is in a enemies to lovers, and she is struggling with controlling her magic and getting just completely thrown into political atmosphere when she thought she was a nobody orphan girl and finds out she is essentially a princess. And she is just
Mm-hmm.
so not a part of that like royal high class culture, and her just learning
Mm-hmm.
to put herself into that box when she does not fit in that sphere at all. She's just so messy and I love it.
There's so many wonderful messy characters because I remember being a reader young when I was younger, and I remember ever caring about if the main character was a good person or not, or like to me it was like the more complex they are, which I feel like tech it tends to be the more messy they are, it was the more interested I was. And it's I still feel good writing messy characters, or just I think with Billy and Murderland, I did set out to specifically try to write was Jewish characters tended to be like they did good in school and they were kind of nerdy. Like I want to do a Jewish character who is getting in trouble at school and is stubborn and sort of standoffish and does not follow any of those traits. And I think the other thing is like there just wasn't that much Jewish YA horror thriller. I did set out to like make her a flawed character. Here's what I learned in screenwriting school. They teach you like you want a character to present a flaw at the very beginning, and the whole point of the movie is that they go on a character arc and they will work out of that trait. And that's like a whole pillar of storytelling, at least in that tradition. So I'm like, yeah, every single character I write, they have a want and they have a need, and those two things don't intersect. And part of that is a flaw, and they will overcome their flaw and realize what their need was and whether or not and like how to let go of that want. And like yeah, that's like kind of how I always approach storytelling. All my characters are going to be realistic, which means you're probably going to be really frustrated with them and their decisions.
We need more imperfect, flawed characters because humans are inherently flawed and imperfect and messy. And it just really creates an entirely new level of authenticity to writing
Mm-hmm.
when characters are, shades of gray and
Yeah.
have their issues, and, whether they overcome those issues in the writing or not, what works best for the plot, the character arc, the story. Because some
Mm-hmm.
characters never get better. They're just messy
Yeah.
all the time. And it's
Yeah.
just something
Yeah.
that I really like to see in writing.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Absolutely.
Well, I am having a lot of fun with this. This has been wonderful. I just want to tie us back into the release of Murderland. If you're looking for messy characters, if you're looking for thrillers that are written as if it is a movie ready for you to watch, check out Murderland. I'm so excited for the release. Can't wait to go pick up my copy.
If you like thrillers that are kind of, I guess I'm trying to kind of go back to that tradition of a little bit wacky. I really love a unique setting, and setting is character. The characters are fully fleshed out human beings who are saying the wrong thing and having like funny conversations, like either funny or serious, like whatever. They're having conversations like about their lives while murder is going on. So like, it's a little bit of a teen drama, a little bit of a history. It's got a lot going on, but I think it's a fun experience, and I hope any of my, romance fans will follow me sort of into this new foray into genre, and any new thriller fans can sort of discover me along the way. Because I hope to be able to stay here and keep writing in this arena.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you again so much for joining me today on Must Love Books podcast. This has been such a pleasure.
Yeah, I've had such a lovely time too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for listening. This has been Must Love Books. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon under @MustLoveBooksPodcast. Thank you and happy reading.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets, with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.